Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly developer update. So this week actually marks the 50th week I've been doing these. So yeah, I think the first developer update was uploaded on the 25th of January. So it's also coming up on almost been a whole year of them. So it's just, wow, it's been a while doing these, a lot longer than I would have thought when I first started them. So I've not managed to get tons done this week outside my coursework because my course, being a student, coursework deadlines always looming over. And I've just been very busy with just coursework, and then I also had my birthday, so I was meeting friends and family and whatnot. But I thought first I'll just show you the little coursework shader thing I've been working on, and then I just thought it'd be nice to just have a look back on like what I've managed to do over the past, 50 now weeks of game development, whether it be just doing a bit of game development in my free time or doing coursework and just see how far I've come, essentially. So here, I'll start by showing what I've done this week, just get it out of the way. As you can see, I made this little shader, so I wouldn't stare at the middle of it because I'm probably going to change that, but the middle tends to flash quite a lot. But as you can see, I've got these various different coloured hills with these different sized buildings, as well as I've got it like mirrored on the top, but in like a complete black outline with these little green dots. So this is what I've managed to do is like a 2D shader in Shader Tool, just messing around, looking at a few tutorials, and I think it's turned out alright. I think I do want to change that middle bit just because that's a little seizure causing. But other than that, I think I'm quite happy with it, and I'm probably just going to submit it as is, but maybe change that and then maybe just mess around with the colour values. So as for just looking back, the first few developer updates were just showing the Soulbound project, and back then, I was it was still a lot more basic. I mean, granted, it's still very basic now due to just being busy with all projects, but I like to think it's come a decent way, at least with the possession mechanic, albeit it is still very buggy and in the test phase. I mean, this is still a cool idea that I'd like to work on in my own free time. Maybe like once I've finished uni, I can full on just devote my time to this project. I think that would be really good. Just because I know this project, I like the idea of it, but it just seems like such a big commitment. I think the main thing will probably just be lowering the scope on it. So maybe, it's just this single level with maybe, I don't know, 3 enemy types and a really solid player controller, and I just try and work on it from there. But yeah, Soulbound was the first game project that I showed, well, anyone watching these, or just when I started documenting my progress. And I think it's a very cool idea. I still like the idea. I just think I need to tone the scope down on it to be something more realistic. And I want to work on this project only when I can devote all my time and energy to it. Because even now, I look at it and I go, these ninja sprites that I made are like a year old, and looking at that now, I go, oh, I can kind of see bits in that I kind of want to improve. Which obviously you can keep working on a game forever at some point if you just keep nitpicking and just going at it. But I think overall this is a good concept, and I would like to devote more time and effort into it. The next project I then started showing was, the Orbit game. Try to just get on the level. The Orbit game with, just being all these different planets, and I think this was before I even redid all the art. I think this game's came a long way from where it was originally. Because originally I made this game in a week originally. Just like the very basic necessities of it I made back in, I want to say October, November-ish in 2019. and I started doing work on it, and not 2019, it was 2020, sorry. And then in 2021, when I started doing these developer diaries, I thought, it's a cool idea. I've got really good marks. I want to do a bit of work on it. And I think overall, it's just like a little tech demo to show what I'm capable of. I think it works really well. The only bug I can really find with it is a little bug with the star, the little like shooting stars going past. But other than that, the actual physics and the gameplay, feels really fun, feels intuitive, and I think it's quite a unique way of moving in what I would call a platformer, rather than you can't actually jump, you just have to like sort of gain speed and momentum. Like, I think this was a low scope project that I've managed to just over time, my free time, just put work on, just a few hours this week, a few hours the next, and I think I'm really happy with it. And I look at this and go, although I'm happy with it now as like a basic thing, I can see where I could build upon this, Maybe if this was a larger scope, maybe you add different ways to increase your speed, maybe there's a boost, maybe there's like a boost pad that you can hit that'll launch you further, I can see all sorts of ways you could expand on this. Like when I was coming up with this idea, I thought maybe it could be cool if I could suddenly create like a box that would have all the gravity be in a specific way. So maybe in say this box here, maybe in this box the gravity is constantly going down, but then in this box here the gravity is constantly going to the right. So if you land here, you go down and right and end up down here. I thought, I can think of a lot of ways to build upon this, and I'm pretty happy with it currently. So those were like the first two projects I showed in Game Dev Diaries, but then when it really started getting like probably the most progress I've shown was when we did the group projects, the Garden Rush, Evolve, Prism, and Fast Food Takeaway Drift. And it was quite a frustrating effort, some of them. Like especially this Garden Rush one was horrible. It was just a terrible game in general. But I think if these 4 games show anything, it shows a progression. We had Garden Rush, which was just this absolute mess, which barely, I wouldn't even call it playable. It was just a mess in all sense of the word. And then we went from that, we went to Evolve, which Evolve, I don't think it's like a perfect game. I don't think it's amazing or anything, but it's a decent game, and I am happy with the I'm happy with the outcome with it, especially given the circumstances. I remember making this game. It was me and one of my group members. We were in his room together working on the game we were both working on it all day separately on like the day before submission, and then at around 7-8 o'clock we got in the same room together, we had some tea, and then we just worked on it from like, I think it was 7 at night until about 5 in the morning maybe. It was like 4 or 5 in the morning, just stupid o'clock, just polishing it, just like I'd play test it, I'd find a few bugs, and then I'd tell him about that, and then while I'm doing that I'd find something wrong with the animator and I'd fix that. And I think especially given the circumstances, I think me and him especially, we put a lot of effort into it, and it turned out alright. And then, after that, it really just went up from there. We had Prism, and then Fast Food Takeaway Drift, which these 2 games, even now looking back at them, like I just thought, if I just open Prism and see how it plays, just looking back, I think this feels really good. It's got so many nice little effects, the particles, I really like the squash and stretch idea that I told them, one of my programmers to implement. And I think this game was just, especially considering this won the game jam it was entered into, I was really happy with this one in general. couldn't think of anything I'm not really happy with it. You know, considering this was made in, what, I think... It was at most a week, maybe 10 days, if I remember correctly. I think at most it was 10 days, and at least it was probably a week. But this one really came out polished, you know, just a really fun game. And something that made me personally quite proud of this one was originally, before we did this game, we started work on another game. And that game just, the project lead for it, frankly, was just didn't have a clear vision, which you just end up scrapping the whole game. So for this one, I was the project lead. We didn't really know what we wanted to do. I just went away and just came up with the idea for this game in about an hour, and then pitched it to the team. They were all on board, and then it just turned out into like a really good game. You know, I'm just really happy with this one in general. It just had a lot of little polish as well. Like, if I just open it again, there's just so many little things that I just look and go, it's not necessary, but it just adds to it a little bit, you know. This particle system, I love how the shapes will just disappear. I love how the buttons will just slightly bounce, or like, you know, they'll glow a bit less when you hover over them. You know, or when this slow motion, for example, was just added in the last 2 days maybe. You know, just making it so the music goes more slow motion. And also the music turned out really well for this game. And the whole score multiplier. It was a very simple idea for a game. And because of that, it ended up being the best game we made up to here. And it just turned out really well. And this is definitely something I put on my portfolio, you know. Like this and Fast Food Takeaway Drift especially, just ended up really solid games. Yeah, I need to die and stop playing this so I can hurry through. You know, this game was like the turning point in our group, because this one as well was like a noticeable, like, you know, everyone in the group contributed a decent bit, which was really nice to see. And then, you know, we went from that to Fast Food Takeaway Drift, which was Prism was an easy like a simple concept, polished and just added a ton of features and just made it really well. Whereas Fast Food Takeaway Drift was a bit more complex, you know, having like a map, a lot more art assets. And this one I remember as well, for this one, working my arse off, you know. So for this one, because I did quite well as project lead on Prism, I kind of wanted to be project lead again, my team wanted me to. So I was like, alright, I'll be project lead, but I also like doing the art, so I ended up being the project lead and the artist for the game at the same time, which kept me very busy, you know. Just, if you look at the amount of art assets here, you know, just the cars, all the different tiles, you know, it was a lot of work to get done in a short amount of time. Just getting all these different tiles and cars made, the NPCs, as well as just outside of that, just managing a small group of, it was 5 people including me. But I think this game was, I consider this game on par with Prism, in that this game also turned out really well, and this is just like Prism in that I am quite proud of. I take a lot of pride, and I'm proud of this. And this is definitely something I, you know, throw on my CV and go, or on my portfolio and go, you know, I was part of this. This is what I did, and I'm quite proud of it. So after the group projects, you know, I had a lot of game dev diaries, just doing various bits on, you know, Orbit and the Soulbound Possession idea, and you know, I'll be guilty for a lot of game dev diaries being me and A-Sprite, you know, showing what art I've done this week, whether it be creating some dinosaurs or the player, you know, maybe reskinning it to be something that I think looks even better, or it's been creating some animations or just some basic tiles. You know, just going through here, I have, you know, hundreds of just pieces of art which some of these even before I even started Game Dev Diaries, but a lot of these just been in the past year, you know. So like if I go through here, just all these different, as you can see on the right, all these various just art that I've done, and I think it's really helped me improve it, you know. It was like a few weeks ago I created that fox. There was one week where I created this big lizard man. You know, I've done a lot of work on this tile set, which I think is coming out really well. And then apart from that, you know, I've also tried to dabble in other things. Like when I entered the Ludum Dare game jam with a couple friends, you know, I was on music and animations. I ended up making a bit of music. I've just realised I left this running, so the Orbit music's been on this whole time, but you know, aside from that, I also had the odd week where I try and make a bit of music, which I really hope this isn't too loud. Yeah, I'll turn desktop audio down a bit. Oh. So, you know, I've done quite a lot of different stuff this past year in all these game dev diaries, and I think I've learnt a lot from it as a result, you know? Obviously, I don't have, you know, I don't have tons of different games that I've done that I'm like, you know, I've not got a CV of like 10 different games to show, but I've got, you know, a few little projects that I'm quite proud of, and I think I've honed my skills a good bit over the past year outside of outside of getting good marks in my courseworks. And yeah, it's been quite a productive 50 game dev diaries. So I think that's about everything I wanted to go through. So yeah, on the 25th, that'll be 1 year where I started doing this. So to anyone watching, which you know I know there isn't tons of people watching this. It's mainly for me just to document it if anything. But if anyone's watching or watched any of these, thanks for watching, and thanks for watching any of the past 50 dev diaries. And all I can say is here's to 50 more. Alright guys, peace, and I'll see you all next week.